Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I am so excited to be bringing you guys along with us. We are in our very first house that we bought. It was over 10 years ago now. If you guys are new here, my husband and I on the side, we own a couple of rental properties. And this week, our first tenant from our first house moved out. So we're going to be renovating it, redoing the space, and getting it ready for short-term rental versus like an actual long-term tenant. I'm so excited. It's so fun being back in this house. Again, it's been 8 years since I've been in here, but it's our first house and they'll always hold like a special place in my heart. And it was the house that my son was born in. So I love it. I'm excited to fix it up again, renovate it, and then stage it and get it rented out for short-term rental. I have mentioned before on my channel that I love doing short-term as a way to kind of create a special space for guests and hosting and making it special over and over again. So I'm so excited. Hello. We are actually going to be repainting the entire house as well as sanding the floors. So it's not like a hard thing, it's just like a time-consuming thing. So I thought I would show you kind of like an empty house. Well, it's not really empty because I brought a lot of the kiddos' toys and stuff in here, but they don't really play with at home. I just am putting them here for now. So while we're working on the project, they have a space to play. Yes, we got Mr. Potato Head already. But anyway, this is the actual living room space. And then in here, I'll kind of give you a quick house tour, even though right now it's definitely a mess still. So this is the main bedroom. It's really small actually in comparison. This is my son's room. And then we have our dining room space and then our kitchen space. It also has a small kitchen. So we already took a lot of the cabinets off. So we're going to be getting those repainted as well as just finished sanding all the floors. When I say we, I mean my husband finished sanding all the floors. And I think we are gonna leave them all like the natural color. I think it's really, really pretty actually. So we're gonna leave it all natural and then of course clear coat everything. So I'm really excited with what we've got done so far. Actually been over 3 weeks since my last update. As you can tell from the flooring over here, we ended up staining it instead of leaving it natural, and I love the way it turned out. Yeah, it's coming together really, really well. But today we are actually going to do one final store run. We're probably going to go to IKEA and just get some classic glasses, some silverware and things like that to fill in the missing gaps for the things that we actually need. We also need to find a few lamps to put in this space because this living room doesn't have any. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about our Airbnb hosting experience and kind of how that has been this past year. Yeah. It's really been a huge part of our lives. I want to say probably the past 2 years, but really a big part the past whole calendar year. Really starting this time last year. It's taken up most of our time. So
pretty much.
I'm excited to sit down and be able to talk to you guys just about our experience. I'm going to be kind of doing this in a Q&A style format. Since throughout the past year, ever since I mentioned we did Airbnbs, we've had a lot of questions, either in Instagram messages or here on YouTube about how we got started, why we got started, the process, and everything like that. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the video. What inspired us to become an Airbnb host to begin with? So what is our number one reason behind hosting?
Well, originally we tried it as kind of like house hacking. We wanted to make a little extra money while our house was empty while we traveled, and Airbnb was still fairly new back then.
Yeah.
And we gave
it was what, like 10 years ago?
Yeah, it'd be about 10 years ago, yep. Most exactly. And we just said, why not? So we travel for half the year doing trade shows, as y'all know.
Like you said, we started out just renting our house when we were gone.
Yeah.
So we would open up our calendar only on the days that we were going to be gone. So if you guys are not familiar with Airbnb, if you wanted to rent your house out for an extended period of time, or if you're on vacation, you could open up the dates just for the dates you're going to be gone. And that's kind of how we did that to start off with. And it was okay, but like you said, it was a little bit hard to prepare for guests while you're preparing for a trip and then coming home and not knowing what the house is going to look like.
It wasn't bad. I think it was more just the not knowing, because the people were pretty I'd say they were pretty respectful. Yeah.
I also feel like our goals and the reasons why we do it change throughout the years.
Yeah.
Because I feel like your reason why for doing things can also change. And so I think our reasons why for doing it even like 8 years ago is a little bit different than it might be now.
No, it was more of a house hack back then.
Yeah.
Just a way to make some extra income, and now it's more of actual income, I guess. Yeah.
It gives us more of the financial flexibility and then the freedom to just stay with them more. But be together more as family and do things together more as a family. Yep. So again, the reasons change for why we did it starting 8 years ago versus why we're hosting now.
Yeah, back then we were just trying to put a little extra spending money in our checking account. Now it's more, we're trying to grow a portfolio of houses, and so it's more replacing income rather than side hustle type income.
So I'm going to rewind a little bit because I feel like we did this before. This is our second time filming this, by the way. Well, and we also decided to refilm because in the video that we had filmed, 2 weeks ago, that was talking about Airbnb, we had said we didn't have any personal experience with a specific thing, but now we do.
Now we do.
And we'll come up and we will get to that.
Changed. Some stuff has changed since that video.
Yeah, and so we'll get to that here later in the video. But what I wanted to rewind with, and I did the same thing where I jumped ahead a little bit in that last video, was talking about before we got into Airbnb, what we did for rentals was just renting them out full time, and kind of our process of having full-time tenants, buying the next house, how we did that. If you want to talk about so how we were able to buy the next house, what we did with the first one, and the process of how did we begin our first rental.
Originally we bought our first house basically to live in, and then instead of selling it to buy our second house when we moved, we just kept it. And it took a little bit of patience to find a bank that was willing to work with us and count that income from that rental property that we future rent that we didn't have yet. Also, being first timers, they didn't have much history to go on that we would be successful. So not every bank is willing to go for that. So the first one is probably the hardest.
It is very hard. I felt like our part-time job was just finding a lender.
Yes, we talked to at least probably a dozen lenders before I found one who we worked with. But, we were rookies, first-timers.
I will say after renting out the first one, the second purchase, I think, will always kind of be the hardest, especially if you don't have a rental history.
Correct.
So when we bought our very first house, it was definitely a fixer-upper. Moved in, fixed it up, rented it out.
Yeah.
Same with the second one. As he said, there was a lot of issues. We moved in, fixed it up. We were there for 2 years.
Yes.
Yep. And then we bought another one, which was also bank-owned. Or was that a foreclosure? This third one.
The third one was bank-owned as well. There was a lot, we painted the whole thing. We refinished the floors. That was the hardest part. So yeah, we finished that. That was easier than the second house we bought. So the third one was easier. The fourth one, which is the
where
one
we're
we
at.
live in now, was challenging in different
They've all been
ways.
a little challenging.
Yeah, so because
So to
this one
speak.
needed a roof, and I didn't want to pay for the roof, although we ended up. They wouldn't.
Having to pay.
Yeah, the roof needed to be replaced, and the bank wouldn't finance the house till the roof was replaced. But I couldn't fix the roof myself; it had to be done by a third party. So we had to find a third party contractor that does roofs, and get them to fix it under escrow, and then we could close. That was the hard part of this one. That and the seller and us went back and forth on price quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because
The negotiation on this property was really big. Because I felt like every time, because I think it's because the inspection on this one,
Well-
they had a lot of issues, which there are. It's an old house, so.
this was just prior to prices going like completely like skyward.
Yeah.
So
couple years
we
before
were
that, yeah.
thinking it was a little overpriced for the issues it had.
No.
But
it's
now
like
looking
that.
back now, we got a good deal on it. But back then, we didn't know prices were going to go up as much as they were going to in the
Yeah.
next. This was back in 2018 when we bought
Yeah.
this, and that was before, at least around here, before prices had gone pre-COVID, I'll just say, and so we were just trying to cover ourselves because this house still needs quite a bit of work.
Yeah.
But it needed a lot of work, and so the seller, he knew it needed a lot of work too, and they covered up some stuff. There was some damage we missed. There was some fire damage in the attic that we didn't catch till like the day of closing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there's a little fire damage, but don't worry, we took care of it." They didn't really take care of it, but anyways.
Didn't find that until later.
Yeah, we didn't find out till closing, but it was still a good deal. The house
Yeah.
went through. We love the house, and the only thing we don't like about it necessarily is we wish it had a little more wooded land on it. But other than that, we like it a lot.
Yeah.
And it was a good deal, very good deal.
It's our first country home, so.
Yep, and this one has never been a rental as of now, anyways.
Yep.
And the last one we bought after this one was the duplex that you guys have all heard a
This
little
is
bit about.
the one that we'll talk about.
Yeah,
the
we'll talk
most
about
today.
this the most.
Yeah,
And
it's our most current project.
so that was our first house to buy that we never lived in. So we just bought that, and we did actually pay cash for it, but it needed a lot of work. The house purchase was a small purchase. The repairs costed more than the house did.
Yep.
The building did. So learned a lot in that. Should we go into details?
Yeah.
Where do we start?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, if you guys have been around for a while, you know that I've
You've
been
heard
talking
a thing or two about it,
Yes,
yeah.
I know. I've been talking about this project and
part
the
of our
project
lives.
and the big project.
All
It's
kinds
always-
of the project.
Yeah, this is what it is related to, and that is our fifth purchase.
Yeah, our fifth
And
fifth
we
purchase.
bought this one specifically for Airbnb, or I
Yeah.
think we've always had in mind that we would be an Airbnb.
Yeah, pretty much.
And with it being a duplex, it was kind of the perfect property. And we've talked about having the duplex
Yes.
before as it being a wonderful financial thing when it comes to Airbnb, because you're renting out both sides. One side can be your cash flow, while the other side covers all the maintenance and bills and taxes and all that. So it's kind of why we
And this house was
that one, but
specifically
yeah.
designed to be a duplex. It was never a
Yes.
single family. Like some duplexes you'll find, they split it up at one time.
yes, which is what we did with our fourth one.
Yeah, and maybe they changed some of the utilities over, so you got electric here and electric there, and they
Yeah.
divided them up. But they weren't originally built to be one, so I feel like the sound barriers
Yeah.
are never that great. This was built to be one, so the concrete wall that goes down the middle of the property helps keep the sound to a minimum. So when you're on one side making a little noise, you don't hear it as much. So that's a huge thing for Airbnbs, because nobody likes to hear their neighbor any more than
No.
necessary. You
This
hear
is
them a
why-
little bit, but
Yes. That's why the duplex I think was perfect, because it was our first official actual
Yeah.
duplex. We weren't taking a house and dividing it into two units. It was already
Correct.
two separate houses altogether. So renovation process, we bought this, what was it, the fall of 2023? Or the spring of
Spring of
2023? Okay, so
2023.
we bought the duplex the spring of
March
2023.
Yep.
You worked on it all of 2023.
April through the end of the year.
And then if you guys saw our last video, we were doing our 2024 recap.
Yeah,
And
we talked a little bit about it
yes,
there.
we talked a little bit about the spring renovation part, and then we also talked about
Yeah.
our traveling going in from like the March through July. but the renovation that took was like before we traveled and then after we traveled.
Yeah, it was.
If you
it
want to
was
talk
tight.
about that.
Well,
'cause there's a
we
ton of
bought it
renovations.
in March of 2023. We thought about traveling that year, but it didn't happen. So we said, "Oh, let's go buy a duplex. We're not going
Yeah.
to travel this year."
Yeah.
And part of the problem was when I bought it, I thought I could reuse a lot of like the drywall, the electrical, the plumbing. A lot I thought I could reuse, but the more I started tearing apart things, the more I realized the big one was the drywall. The drywall was just too mold damaged.
Yeah.
The smell was just not going. Like the drywall itself looked fine, and it would have worked, but the smell was not. And I
Yeah.
did not want to put all this money into this place and have it smell like mold. So that meant everything had to go. And when you tear the drywall off, then you see the in and outs of the electrical
Yeah.
and plumbing. And you're replacing all the electrical. I think the order it went was I replaced all the electrical, and then the plumbing, I went to patch up the plumbing, thinking, oh, it's all cast iron plumbing, it's not rusted through, it's good. But I started putting flashlights down the pipe, and I started doing a little research, and there was some things, some signs that the plumbing was bad. The biggest sign was when I took one piece off, it was like rusted straight through. And I was like, oh, I can't keep this. So all the plumbing had to come out, and then I had to hire a plumber to put it all back in. And he was supposed to do both sides of it, I thought. But the price he quoted me, apparently, I misunderstood, and he was only doing half. One side, he was charging me per side. So I thought, well, that's more than I expected. So I thought I'll just do the other side myself to make up for that. But that's how this project ended up taking forever.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, I can hang drywall, and I can, but it took forever. I'm one person. I'm not a pro.
Everything's more time consuming.
Yeah, I'm not a pro. I don't do it every day, so it's like I
Well,
can do it.
so.
Yeah, and like for patching things up, I'm pretty good at it actually. But hanging large quantities of drywall. Originally, I was even going to mud it myself, and after hanging it, I was like, no, not doing that.
Yeah.
It was too much. I shouldn't have even hung it myself.
Yeah.
So then I hired somebody to mud it, and I learned maybe don't hire your neighbor.
Yeah.
I thought I was doing him a favor,
Yeah.
and I was. I was doing him a huge favor, and he did an okay job, but it wasn't a good experience
Yeah.
for either of us. I think for both of us, we should have just not done it for both sides of this party. I don't blame him completely. I think maybe it was best you don't hire your neighbor,
Yeah.
so this way it's just more professional. But so that took a lot longer than it was supposed to because he knew I hung it myself, and it wasn't perfect, to state the least. So there's a lot of extra work to do because I hung it myself. So anyways, I learned that you don't necessarily want to do that. Hire a pro and pay a little extra and have somebody that knows what they're doing do it.
It's hard though.
But
To defend you a little bit here. Not just a construction
hard.
project, but I mean, like when you are hiring it out, to find a good contractor is really difficult now anyway. To find something that's
Yeah.
available for when you need it.
and reasonable.
But when you are, because a lot of the people that we found either on Facebook Marketplace, contractors are hard though,
So-
and finding people.
Yeah, once you find
that
one
are
you like,
skilled,
you
but actually
keep
are
them.
skilled with what they say they're skilled at doing. Okay, seemed to be the thing because we'd find people that said that their full-time thing is hanging, like you said, doing drywall, and they were great.
A lot of it was we were doing this during a time and era when material was expensive.
Yes, that's the other thing too.
It was hard to get
hard to find people
products.
that were-
Products were hard to get a lot of the time, and when you could get them, like when I first started, the plywood was $50 a sheet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
drywall was not that expensive, but it was expensive more so than it is now. But people were hard to find, to get to do work. It was just that kind of stuff.
Challenging.
It was challenging, and it was a fun experience
renovation.
nonetheless.
Yeah, I know for me it was a little bit different as well because this was our first renovation process.
Yeah, well,
on like their first
to
four
that
houses.
scale
Yes,
anyways.
to that scale.
We
But
did
it
a
was-
few small ones, but
Yes, but it was our first rental without moving into
Yeah,
it first, and so
correct,
during
yeah.
the whole renovation, it wasn't this whole.
it was the
fixing
first
it
time
up.
we
Yeah.
tore the whole house apart.
Yeah.
And started from scratch,
Yeah,
basically.
it wasn't like fixing it up when you had the time or fixing it up in the evenings. It was like a full time thing. I think that's why it took.
It's kind of like previously we waded into the pool, like into the little shallow end of the pool,
Yeah,
and this
we'd limit it for a
time,
little bit and then
yeah.
start to slowly fix it up. But it was never, like you said, to this extent.
Yeah, we
and
wade into the
commute was
pool.
long, so it was just a long process in general.
this time we
Yeah.
dove right into
Yeah.
the deep end. and then
It was like
figured out how
on
to
day
swim out.
one, it was, I'll insert some video for you guys, but on day
Yeah, it
one,
was-
there was like carports tumbling down
Yeah,
and
the
everything
ceiling
was
was
being ripped
dripping
out.
everywhere.
Yep. It was
Water
a complete,
pouring
it
in.
was like one of the actual HGTV demo day type things. That's
Yeah,
what it was. It was a complete tear out.
Very much like that.
Yeah.
It looked like that. Felt like
Yeah.
that. There was raccoons flying out of the ceiling.
Yeah.
If I had camera to
It was
catch
so
that
funny.
coon that my brother-in-law almost got in the face,
Yeah.
he never came back after that either. That
Don't blame
traumatized him, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were tearing out ceiling, and that raccoons were in the ceiling, and that's part of the reason we had to redo all the ceilings and wiring, because they destroyed a lot of the wiring
Yes.
and a lot of the drywall too.
When we talk about this property in particular, we always kind of tease each other and say it was the if you give a mouse a cookie story.
Yeah.
Because once you, if you're familiar with the story, it's like once you do this one thing, so once you tear out drywall, you're gonna see that like
true.
there's mold. So then you have to tear out this, and once you see that, you're gonna want to do the
Some
electrical.
bad plumbing and
If you're doing the
electrical.
redoing the electrical, you might as well redo all the plumbing.
Yes,
If
exactly.
you're redoing all the plumbing, you might as well start from
You
scratch.
might as well just start from scratch.
Yeah,
Looking back,
exactly.
we should have just tore everything out, like roof frame, just tore it
Yeah.
down to like, and put a tarp,
Yeah.
put everything.
It's okay.
But,
it was our first actual big renovation
Yeah.
experience.
It came out, it's heated now and has guests in it.
It's great.
so, yeah.
Yep, that's the renovation process. So what was the process like for setting up our Airbnb? So after the renovations were done, which took a while, to me, honestly, the finished work, as we always talk about, the finished work takes the longest when it comes to the little
Well,
details.
it took longer than we thought
Yeah.
it would, that's for sure.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did.
I can't believe, because like you go into renovations, I believe, with like not thinking it's going to take as much time as it does. And I go through the process of staging a unit with the same color, like rose-colored glasses, and
Yeah.
thinking it's not going to take that long.
That's
I think
correct.
we're just going to do a couple trips to the store. We're going to do some thrift trips because I like thrifting a bunch of like decor pieces. We'll get it done in a weekend, no problem. And then like 2 months later, here we are, finally getting it rented.
And my neighbors kept
But-
like, "Oh, are you done yet? This is taking a long
Yeah.
time. You said you'd be
Yes.
done this, that." I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
yes, thanks for reminding me. Yes, it is
Yeah.
taking longer. Yeah, so everybody was like, "Why is this taking so long?"
It took-
And I
it
was
takes
like,
time.
"I agree. I don't know why. It just
Yeah.
is."
Well, and then also in your defense too, as far as the time goes, and I know, and I'll mention again that we weren't living there,
We
of
weren't.
course, for the
Yeah.
process. The commute was long, and then for the first 6 months of the project, you were still working full time mostly.
Correct. Yeah, and I forget about that. Yeah, I was working.
So you were just doing evenings and weekends there for a
Yeah.
while until we realized that it was a huge project.
Because that was back when I thought,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm gonna keep all the drywall, plumbing,
Yeah.
electrical. We're just gonna patch the drywall up, repair the
We'll
roof."
work on it when we have time to.
And
mentality.
yeah, but later, 12 months later, after the windows are replaced, the drywall's replaced, the
Yeah.
electrical's replaced, the plumbing's replaced,
Yeah.
roof's replaced, everything's replaced, except
Yes.
the brick.
Hey,
the
it
brick
looks,
stayed.
it looks great now.
And yeah,
It looks great.
so-
It's a brand new house practically.
And it's pretty cool.
It's all that. So it was a long commute. And then I think once you realized that it wasn't going to take so long, that's when you cut back to just working 3 days a week. So then you could do 2 full days there plus the weekends.
Yes.
and
'Cause
then-
you're right. At first, I was trying to
Yeah.
work full days.
Yes, plus go over there in the evenings.
Yeah.
Very long days.
I don't know what I was
for everyone.
thinking, but
Yeah. It's all good.
I want to say it was after July I started working.
Yeah.
Pretty close to full time, anyways.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the year, that's when I turned it over to a gentleman who started finishing
Yes.
it up. So I
When
thought
we started traveling.
thought he was finishing
yeah.
it up, but
So we started traveling in February. Well, we started prepping for the shows
Yeah,
in
'cause we
February of
traveled.
2024. And that was our first year traveling. And so we took a step back from the renovations. Should I say you took a step
yes,
back from the renovations?
yes. In January, I started. I let the gentleman take over and do
Yeah.
everything.
And then the late summer of 2024 is when we went into the duplex.
Yeah,
finally.
after we were done
Praise the Lord.
traveling.
Yep. After we were done traveling,
Yeah.
we went in and got most of it staged for the most part. There was a couple of odds and ends. I do think for me, the kitchens always take the longest to stage. Not
Yes.
stage, but like get things for. Yeah. All the process. Our only house now that is not an Airbnb. The first house that you
Yeah.
guys saw at the beginning of the video.
That's the other thing that we started. When that was the end of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
we took that on to
Yep.
renovating that house because
Yes.
the tenant
We had a lot
messed
of
it up,
different houses, yeah.
messed it all up, and left it a mess.
Doing a lot of renovation.
And then Grandma passed away,
Yeah.
so that was that was also something that was going on that we talked about in our last video. And so that meant that house had to be, and we decided to, first we
Yeah.
were going to just leave it the way it was, and we went through all the work. She had it perfectly clean, and then I said, you know what, we need to put like a wall
Yeah.
between these two and actually make this a silent wall, and we'll have less complaints. And I got it in my head that that's what we're going to do, so we did that, or I did that, and then we had to clean the house again. So that happened between...
That was
going
after your
on.
hospital, because we started it before your hospital trip.
Yeah, that was right during
That was in
that time.
August.
Yes, so that you're right. That was August and September. So that's when we did that,
Yep.
and then that was finished. We didn't get that on Airbnb until like
October?
the first house we got done around the end of 2023. Got it turned into an Airbnb, and then in 2024 we did it as an Airbnb, and we just didn't like the results we were getting because as a single unit it's expensive and it sat empty a bit, and we got quite a few complaints because it's an older house and we didn't want to spend the money to renovate it completely because we just did that with the other house. So we decided rents were high enough, we were just going to turn it back to a single, and that was 2024. The end of 2024, we rented it out as a single family, back to a single family. So that was a learning experience. We got that all decorated,
Yeah.
and
I had to unload it.
yeah, we had to remove it all again and move that over to
Another rental.
another rental, the one
So
Grandma.
I felt like there's just a lot of moving pieces, especially in the fall of 2024. I know we had talked about in our 2024.
2024 was a busy year.
It was very busy.
Very busy.
And
Very-
it was all good,
lot of
but
stuff
I do
going on.
know from August through the end of November it was
Yeah, it was busy.
constantly going.
Yeah.
But like you
So-
said, there was a lot that happened that year as far as doing all the Airbnbs, deciding to turn the house into a 2-unit, which did require building that whole kitchen from scratch. On top of the same time that we decided, okay, the single unit was no longer working as an Airbnb. We need to turn that back into a full-time rental.
And it's probably all confusing, but there's basically a duplex that's 2 units and a house that's 2 units, and then a single house. So that's what we have to work with. And
The
we've
single
kind of
house we turned
shuffled
back,
shuffled those around in the last
Yeah.
2 years to kind of
Yeah.
figure it out and kind of fine tune it.
I don't know. I think hosting on Airbnb for this past year, when it comes to getting the bookings and stuff, I feel like there's so much money that has to be spent to even get people to book.
True.
And people are super picky
They are.
when it comes down to even just the basic
They like
decor.
IKEA, have we
They
found?
like IKEA. They
Yeah,
just
they like the IKEA.
clean cut modern.
Just-
And I think one of the first house that we had, which we talked about before, one of the main reasons it didn't work was not just it was an older house for sure. There was a lot of antique pieces which I love, and I liked the eclectic style of it. But because the bathroom and kitchen were just not updated, it just did not work out at all.
That
People
is correct.
really want they don't care if anything's old and antique as long as the modern things are modern. So the bathroom needs to be updated. The kitchen
Basically,
needs to be
bathrooms and
updated.
kitchens have to be.
Yes, yeah, all brand new everything, and
Right,
then
yeah.
everything else can be old. But I was like, well, but that would have cost an extra, $15,000-$20,000 to get that updated. But we wouldn't have gotten a return on that because we wouldn't have been able to charge that much more
I
per
don't think
night.
so. No, that's why we
No,
didn't do it.
That's why we just chose not to do that and just put it back on the listing as far as full-time tenants and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our duplex that we have is all modern. The brand new
Yes.
project that we did,
Yep.
and it goes really well. We'll put some before and after pictures.
Yeah.
Of some of the projects
I think
for that one. Yeah.
people like the modern.
They do.
And they like vintage too, but I feel like they, like you said, need the modern kitchen. And
Yeah,
bathroom.
as long as you have modern, like I said, the working things, not the clawfoot tub. Even though I like the clawfoot tub.
Yeah.
It really just.
I think it was this combination of a lot
It
of
was
things.
a combination,
Yeah.
right?
It just, people are picky. It has to be, everything has to be in
A certain way.
a certain way. Yeah.
And we've talked about this too, as far as like people being picky. It's also location has to be perfect.
Yep.
Your amenities have to be perfect. Any stain,
'Cause it was-
any little thing, you'll get. I feel like a point deducted.
I just spoke to the banker, and he said, just, there's loans now that we have history.
Yeah.
We can go more off of the price.
Do
of
something
that.
a little bit more unique.
Yeah.
And have a lender that has worked with us for multiple houses now. So
Correct.
establishing that relationship has been a
That's
huge
important,
blessing.
yeah.
Especially building that trust with the lender as well, because they're trusting you big
And
time.
small banks or
things.
credit unions,
Yes, they're the
something worth
best.
checking out.
Yeah, they're going to be the best bets for that. So we already talked about kind of how we got started, house hacking, moving from house to house, the lender involvement, and how a blessing that is establishing that relationship with having a banker that will work with you. Yeah, we ended up getting
we got quite a bit at yard
one of
sales.
our main kitchens at the yard sale.
Yes, that's true. I was surprised. They happen to have a yard sale.
Yeah, I'll insert a picture of the before and after, but this white kitchen here was our
that
yard
was
sale kitchen.
yard sale kitchen. It came out really good too.
Yeah, I loved it. It was great.
It was a
and
very
then
nice kitchen.
our second kitchen was actually the leftover cabinet
From our house.
our personal kitchen.
So show her a picture of that
yes,
too.
Yeah, I'll show you a picture of that kitchen. They were all the leftover cabinets that our house didn't have room for, and we kept them in the garage for a future reasoning, and this was it. So it was great to cut down costs that way. Yeah. Of course, doing a lot of the work, not all of it, but a lot of the work ourselves. So we bought the kitchens pre-owned. We got our appliances just scratch and dents, even though they were brand new.
Most of them,
Yeah. And so there's some great money-saving things for that. I was going to go ahead and dive into a little bit because this is really what has been the most time-consuming after the listing goes live. So renovations aside, decorating aside, the most time-consuming thing has been dealing with issues, just like with guests and check-ins and check-outs. And for the most part, we've had really good experiences with guests.
Yes.
For the most part,
Mostly.
People are gracious and they're kind.
Mostly,
Mostly. But then there's a few that can just take your whole month and make it a little bit stressful.
Yes.
So that was kind of why we wanted to refilm this video, because we came out from a little bit of a stressful, I don't even want to say it's stressful.
People
it's
just have
frustrating.
different. People have. I think some people have different feelings on what's acceptable to do inside somebody else's house or property versus what isn't.
Yes.
And they think they're maybe doing what's right, and they're not necessarily.
Yeah. So
there's some of that.
Yeah. So the part that we wanted to kind of talk about and refilm that we did not talk about in our last video, which is over here again.
Here we are.
Yes, and that is the whole using the Airbnb air cover. If you guys aren't familiar with Airbnb air cover, this is what they tell the hosts, like, don't worry about accepting a guest that does not have any ratings, because if they, quote unquote, destroy your property, we will cover the cost it costs to repair everything. Yeah. And in the last video that we filmed about Airbnb, we said that we did not have to use Airbnb cover.
We hadn't at that time.
We hadn't at that time.
Yes.
But 2 days later, we did.
Yes,
so we're going to talk about a little bit of the cons, I think, for Airbnb rentals. Specifically cons, though, for if you're renting to people that have pets, or if you allow pets. You don't always have to allow pets, but if you do, this is what you have to watch out for.
If you allow pets, crazy. I feel like there's just this much more risk that you're going to have. But pets, when they're, especially when they're new location,
they're not in their environment.
This pet may be an excellent, well-trained pet, but you put them in a new location, and then there's been other pets there in the past, so different smells, different textures, and then when you go there, you don't go there to hang out necessarily with your pet the whole time. So even though we tell them they're not allowed to leave their pet there by itself, unattended to, or they inevitably are going to, probably because they don't want to take them everywhere, probably. Right. And so just inevitably, just plan on the pets being there unattended, and things happen. And when they do, that's when you try to get them to fix things. And sometimes, as we found out, they'll try and fix the issues themselves unbeknownst, and then sometimes they make the issue worse by trying to cover up some of the stuff they did, which makes it even harder to clean it because they use sub-quality materials to cover issues. And so you're stuck with an even bigger problem, and then they're upset because you're upset that you're not accepting that they were trying to be these really nice people who cleaned up after themselves, and you're like, no, but you kind of didn't. You left us more work to do. Yeah. So that's when Airbnb steps in and says, hey, we see there's a misunderstanding. They think they did right. You think you did right. there was damage done, that's when air cover comes in, or at least that's when it came in
Yeah.
this situation. And I would say they took all the info and they did what they said they were going to do, and I wouldn't complain at all.
Yeah, I think the lesson that we've learned with having to actually use Airbnb cover now, or air cover they call it, is the importance of keeping every
of
single
photos, yeah.
receipt. Not just
Or
receipt, but like
receipts, yeah.
some type of a record of where you purchased the items. So we've also had other experiences that we haven't actually had to use air cover for because guests have paid.
Yeah.
But this particular month, for some reason, and it was through November and December, we had our duplex that we just finished. We had a tenant stay in there.
And just, I say,
just like everything was
documenting.
ruined. Yeah.
Just document as much as you can.
Yeah.
Keep track of how much stuff costs.
Yeah.
Keep as much records as you can. If you hire somebody to fix something, keep track of that so you can get reimbursed for it and have evidence that you did it.
Yeah.
And if you did it yourself, then keep track of how many
Yeah.
hours you got into it and kind of do some research as to how much it would have cost if you had hired someone, that kind of thing. And they're in this situation, I've heard mixed reviews, but in our experience, they were pretty reasonable.
As far as whether or not we
You know.
recommended.
Correct. We're still up in the
Yeah.
air. We're just kind of giving you our experience. And
Yeah, it's been good overall. I would tell people just starting out or wanting to start out to not just have the cost of like your upfront costs, your decorating, but you're going to have the budget of consistently replacing stuff.
Yes.
If you're not familiar with how Airbnb works as well, they take a pretty good significant chunk of your
they
money
do.
as well.
And there's taxes.
And there's taxes and there's fees. And if you don't want to clean it yourself, you've got the cleaner issues to worry about.
Correct.
which
And we
can have a
didn't
whole
even get
other
into
video.
that. Did we get into the cleaners?
No, we've had
didn't.
really bad
Oh.
experiences with cleaners. That's
Where do
another
you
thing.
start?
Yeah.
Finding a cleaner is
Full-time
your
job.
main, like if you can find a good
Yeah.
cleaner you can trust,
They're worth every penny.
let me know because we struggle with that.
They're worth every penny.
Yes.
A huge part, and we forgot to cover this, a huge part of why our first house didn't do well is we had two of our worst cleaners at that house.
Yeah, because they say they do things and they don't.
don't.
It's so frustrating. Like that one especially where she left
Yes,
behind
yeah.
all kinds
I walked into the house and I was just going to do a quick drop off of restocking coffee and creamer, and I walk in the house and see everything.
Yeah,
just
and you were coming right back
totally
home, and I
messed.
thought we
Yeah.
had plans for that day, and she was just dropping some stuff off.
I was there for 6
You were there
hours,
the rest
something
of
like
the
that.
day. I remember right.
This is the other thing too, is we had reached out to the guest and we had asked the guest what time, because we didn't want to tell them that nothing had been cleaned, even though the cleaner said it was. We didn't want to tell him that because that's not professional. So we reached out to him and was like, hey, what time were you planning on arriving?
they didn't-
We had a mishap.
They eventually got back to us.
Yes, but they did not for a while.
No,
So
they didn't.
I was in a little bit of a nervous mode cleaning because I was like, I had no idea if the guest was going to walk in because it was past check-in time at this point.
Because a lot of people show up
Yeah.
early.
They do,
I mean,
and they don't let you know.
Yeah.
So I was really worried that I was going to get walked in on at any moment, and so I was like,
And
running through the
that's
house
just
cleaning.
stressful because you're not, you don't want to be there.
But the cleaners hadn't changed the bed because
No.
there was some other people's clothes in it still.
Yep.
There was like twin size sheets on the queen size bed, so it
There
didn't
was,
even cover the bed.
and
It was just very strange. But the valuable lesson we've learned is a good cleaner is worth
And a
every
good
penny.
person,
Yeah.
whether it's you or somebody else, a
Yeah.
family member, just somebody, a third party to walk through after the
Yeah.
cleaner. Because sometimes, anybody can miss something
Yeah.
and mistakes happen. So a second set of eyes is always, I think, a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Cleaners have been another.
Cleaners, yeah, we saved the best for
Another
last.
thing. Yeah, that has been a problem. So do definitely be prepared if you're not going to
Yeah. Clean it yourself.
clean it yourself. Be prepared to pay minimum $125 per cleaning.
Well, this is going to vary from market to market.
It does vary from
And
market
from house to
market.
house,
We pay
and the size of the house.
$150 for most of our units
Yes,
per cleaning.
but that's
So
going
be
to
prepared
vary.
for that. Be prepared to not only cover the cleaning costs. Now you do charge a cleaning fee on Airbnb, which covers it. But what's not going to be covered on Airbnb is
Damaged
the
items.
mundane, like constantly replacing your towels, your sheets. And it's not something that's big enough that I would reach out to Airbnb cover for.
No.
But you just have to.
Half the time you don't even know who,
Right,
when
you
they
don't
disappeared.
even know who to charge
because the
unless
cleaners
the cleaners
don't.
let you know things are damaged.
But they're not gonna to hire somebody to go through every piece of
Make
silverware,
sure
every
no
piece
are
of towels,
stained and no, yeah.
it's like almost impossible.
It is.
So you just plan on replacing stuff, and the people that literally do tons of damage, I think, and essentially end up paying to replace a lot of the stuff.
And we have had people that have damaged a lot of stuff. Like that one guy with the pet, they damaged not just like the linens, the whole mattress needed to be replaced. And he did cover that because he knew ultimately that the damage was done, so he did cover.
The lady covered.
Oh, did she? Okay,
The guy,
he paid half, maybe.
He volunteered like some of it.
Okay.
And then Airbnb paid the difference.
Oh, did they? Okay,
Yeah.
so it was 50-50.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess things like that where there's a lot of hidden costs
Yep.
that people don't exactly tell you. So that's the negative. I would say the con is there's so many hidden little things. And for us, we live out in the country. All of our rentals are, a good 45 minutes away. So it's just the time it takes. And we don't have the necessarily, I guess like with all the check-ins and check-outs, being able to get that far
and
back for
we have leaned towards, I don't know if we've mentioned this, but we've leaned towards more of a midterm philosophy.
A lot of
our renters are there for 2 weeks to 2 or 3 months,
which is great.
But it has its pros and cons.
It does.
They leave bigger messes, they do more damage, but you don't have to deal with like a million
Check-ins and
people,
check-outs.
check-ins and
So
check-outs,
it's so hard to
which
know
has its
what the best.
own set of struggles. So. Yeah.
It's hard to know what is the best. Like you said, you don't have this the constant.
There are pros and
going.
cons.
But there is pros and cons.
Yep.
And so would we recommend it? I would say right now we would recommend definitely doing midterm as far as maybe.
Yep. And if you can
those
mix in
listings.
some short term to get reviews that are positive, especially when you have some issues come up or you have some empty
Yes.
spots to fill.
Yeah. Build up your reviews.
But then you got to remember some places don't allow Airbnb short term too. So keep that in mind. So if you're going to try this, do some research, do your due diligence. Make sure they actually let you rent out on Airbnb before you
every
go.
state is going to be different for sure.
Before you plan on investing a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
What else you got?
I think that's good. It's been an overall good experience so far. As far as the financial
We've had fun.
freedom.
I mean, it's been challenging.
It's been fun. It's been challenging, like you said. There's a lot of those hidden. I would consider, of course, the hidden cons
Yeah.
of the constantly replacing things and dealing with the people that are just.
It helps too when you're.
It
It helps when you're buying houses cheap and prices are going
for
up
sure.
all along
Yeah.
because you have that like in the back of your mind though. Even though if you're not, struggling with Airbnb and keeping it rented, that's not going perfect, which it basically never does. No matter what you do, it's not perfect. So it helps when the tide is rising versus the other way around. So if you're losing money on a property and you're having a hard time keeping it rented, that might be a sign to that's not a good idea.
Just rent it out full time.
Or dump it altogether.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, the full-time tenant, it's definitely less stress. I think there's less cash flow, but there's definitely less.
There's way less stress.
Way less stress as far
less,
as not dealing with the constant in and out.
Yep.
But there's less money. But then Airbnb, with the fees and the cost of replacements.
Yep.
We don't know.
Yeah. We'll do another update.
We do need to do an
We'll do
update.
another update in a year from now, and I think
should,
we'll have a lot more useful information by then.
Yeah, so check back
So,
for another update.
Keep an eye out for that.
Next summer, probably. That would be a whole calendar year.
Probably, yeah.
And we'll be able to actually probably tell you the exact numbers, what we made, what the costs were. Because right now, again, it's hard to know because I feel like we put them on the market. They went really, really well because there was a lot of conventions in the area. And then, of course, it's like the slow season.
Yeah, January's slow.
But once we hit late summer, then I'll be able to get a full calendar year of seeing really the big picture of what the numbers are, what the busy season is for the area, and things like that. But overall, it's been good. Again, last year was crazy busy.
It was.
But
yep.
it was
You
good.
go check out our update if you didn't see that.
Yep.
Our
Our
2024 update.
We talked about it a little bit.
Check that out.
Okay, thank you guys for watching. Bye.
I see y'all. Bye.
Light shining from the window late at night. I'm just watching someone else's life go by, wishing it was mine. Dreams, everybody has them at the start. Somewhere along the way they fall apart, and it makes it kinda hard to look up at the lights. When the lights go out, everything is clearer. When the lights go out, try your best to hold on to the rope. We all have a reason to let go, and it's easier to do, but it's better if we don't. When the lights go out, everything is clearer. When the lights go out, I can finally see what it's all about. Standing in the mirror, when the lights go out, it's you looking back at me. When you wish upon a star just to find out it's a plane, and when you think you've come so far, but you're standing still again, and you finally understand. When the lights go